Good afternoon, everyone, or as we say here in Bulgaria, Dobar den. Welcome to the session Youth Empowerment Can't Wait for the Future. My name is Ekaterina Dimitrova. I will be your moderator. I'm a vice president of the Bulgarian think tank, the Atlantic Club of Bulgaria. It is a privilege for me to be a moderator of this session, which is organized by the mayor.eu, the European portal for cities and citizens in partnership with the European Youth Forum. Few words about me, maybe just to make sense why I was invited by the organizers to be your moderator. I have been a member of my local youth parliament as a student, then a board member of the youth section of our UN association here in Bulgaria. I've been also working for the government and for the non-governmental side of our civil society. So I can say I was quite in the shoes of youth activists and also both non-governmental and governmental sector. And one thing I have learned over these years is that young people are not only the future, but they are the present. And this is the reason to have this high-level discussion today, as we need policies to affect in a positive way the life of young people in Europe in this very moment. As you all know, we are now in the European Year of Youth, and the aim is of the European Year of Youth is to encourage young people to build a better future, a greener, a more inclusive, and a digital future. The main aim of our session today is to foster a political debate presenting good practices linked to the implementation of cohesion policy with the focus on green and digital transition and focus on youth and youth policies. And today we have, fortunately, representatives of the European institutions, of the local authorities, and academia. Our session will last approximately 90 minutes with the participation of 4 speakers that we have today and also 3 video interventions. Following the video messages and the speakers, we will have a around 30-minute discussion with the Q&A session. So we have today here, I would like to present our speakers today. We have Mr. Ivan Neirotti from the European Youth Forum, Ms. Snezhina Petrova from the Office of the EU Commissioner, Maria Gabriel, Mr. Ricardo, Mayor of Braga and a member of the Committee of Regions, Mr. Thomas Lhermitte, Municipal Councillor and Youth Representatives from Amiens, and Mr. Hristo Andonov from the Bulgarian National Sports Academy. Youth policies can only be implemented successfully if we have good communication and cooperation between institutions, youth representatives, private sector, and academia. So I strongly encourage you today to write your questions in the chat below in your Zoom interface to our speakers during the whole intervention, so we can start the discussion afterwards. And now it is my pleasure to give the floor for a few introductory remarks to Mr. Ivan Neirotti, who is a project officer at the European Youth Forum. Mr. Neirotti, you have our virtual floor.
Thank you very much, Ekaterina. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Thanks to Azenia and the team from the mayor.eu for involving us in this very, very European Youth Capitals focus session. It's a pleasure to see so many youth capitals taking part in the debate today, but also through the different video contributions. So for us, it's a great honor because the European Youth Capital title, which is a title was launched by the European Forum in 2007, and has so far already brought the title to more than 15 cities. It's really about networking and cooperation about cities. And of course, the different representatives today will have the chance to go into the details and the insights of each and every youth capital. But I just want to raise this point to stress on the fact that the European Youth Capital title is not just a title that lasts for 1 year. It's a title that really gives the chance to cities to continue networking and cooperating on a long term, and to really also see the effects of their actions on the long term within the young people that they are working with, which is at the end the final target of the European Youth Capital project. So very briefly, I'm really happy to see Braga that this year is celebrating the 10 years of the European Youth Capital title that was in 2012, and it's a great example that shows how much cities they continue to being champions of youth engagement at the local level, and they can still also continue being in a way leading the way for also other cities. We also have Amiens that unfortunately they were European Youth Capital during the COVID-19 pandemic, and we know much also young people and physical exchanges were affected during these few years. And we really appreciate their efforts of continuing also bringing the effort and working on the legacy of the European Youth Capital title also for the years to come. And Cluj, we know that Cluj is one of the cities in Europe that was able in the last decade to really focus a lot on youth and innovation especially. And it's, again, one of the leading actors in a network of the European Youth Capitals. We will also hear from future youth capitals that are already on the way, that are already working on the ground with the young people. Lublin, which will be the European Youth Capital next year in 2023, and Ghent, it will be the Youth Capital in 2024. So it's a very wide range of cities geographically, also historically, talking about when the title was awarded. But we will see, I think, at the end of the discussion, we will see today that these cities have so much in common, and they can really share much also with other actors around Europe. So I'm really looking forward to the discussions, and I give the floor back to you, Ekaterina. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neirotti, for your input on European Youth Capitals. So now it's time to start our discussion, and I would like to introduce our first speaker. This is Ms. Snezhina Petrova, who will speak on behalf of EU Commissioner Maria Gabriel. As you know, she's a Commissioner for Innovation, Research, Culture, Education, and Youth. So Ms. Petrova, please tell us more about the European policy context, meeting points between youth and digital transition. You have the virtual floor.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, at first, allow me to thank the organizers for the invitation to Commissioner Gabriel. She is not able to join you today, but she asked me to convey to you her message. Nowadays, the promotion of youth participation and empowerment of young people to be active in society is important more than ever. We want to encourage and support them to take a more active part in our society. And we, the Commission, developed a range of initiatives. First, the EU Youth Strategy, which is based on its 3 pillars of engage, connect, and empower, supported by the 11 European youth goals created by young people themselves. Second, through Erasmus Youth and European Solidarity Corps. Both programs include participation in democratic life as one of their 4 horizontal priorities, along with inclusion, green, and digital. Third, the EU Youth Dialogue has been the main tool for youth participation for 11 years. Young people can engage with policymakers, experts, and other civil society actors and make their voices heard on important issues close to their heart. Finally, through the European Year of Youth, we wish to give all young people the possibility to exchange and learn from each other. Our youth programs have a long-lasting history of offering life-changing opportunities to young people. As I mentioned, Erasmus Plus program, as of 2021, supports the youth participation activities specifically aimed at empowering young people, fostering their participation in Europe's democratic life at the local, regional, national, and European level. The European Solidarity Corps offers an opportunity for young people to make a meaningful contribution to society, while gaining invaluable experience and developing new skills. Further, Discover EU gives young people aged 18 years the opportunity to travel around Europe, learn from other cultures, build new friendships with fellow Europeans, and explore their European identity. And our autumn call, Discover EU, was yesterday opened, and it will be open until 25th of October. And I want to encourage all young people aged 18 years to apply. The European Year of Youth 2022, this year, which is European Year of Youth, is a year for all of us to listen, to include young voices in our policies. Following a bottom-up approach, it includes thousands of activities and events taking place across all the Europe. The umbrella message is Voice Your Vision, and for this we have launched an innovative digital platform which is going to allow each of us to experience an exciting digital journey through the wishes and goals of our young generation. A practical opportunity for exchanges and mutual learning is also offered by the Youth Talks, which are 20-minute talks from a young person to a young person, spreading ideas, empowering and inspiring to be actors of change. Faced with the challenges of the digital transition, allow me also to underline the crucial importance of digital education. One of the key initiatives of Commissioner Gabriel is the Digital Education Action Plan, and all its 14 key actions are under implementation. And it is a vision for high quality and inclusive digital education, where these two characteristics are strongly intertwined. We wish to support a digital education ecosystem that benefits all and that brings added value to each learner. Currently in Europe, 1 in 3 13-year-old students lack basic digital skills when directly tested. And according to the OECD study, only a little over half of 15-year-olds in the EU reported being taught how to detect whether information is subjected or biased. The evidence clearly shows that more needs to be done to ensure that young people are empowered in the digital space. And we know that education plays a critical role here. In order to promote digital literacy, yesterday, the Commission published guidelines for teachers and educators to tackle disinformation and promote digital literacy through education and training. They were the result of the work of the expert group created by Commissioner Gabriel on tackling disinformation and promoting digital literacy. The guidelines will support teachers in developing digital literacy among their students and reflect the dynamic environment of the digital world. Digital skills are also essential to participate in work, society, and education. We outlined in the Digital Decade communication a number of targets that need to be met by 2030, as for instance, 80% of the European population should have at least basic digital skills. To achieve this, we recognize again that strong digital skills depend on effective education systems. And when talking about improving the digital education systems, we must have the national, regional, and local on board. And our joint action plan with the Committee of the Regions is a good example in this respect. Finally, we want to further build on the successes and legacy of the European Year of Youth. That is why next year, as announced by our Commission President von der Leyen, will be the European Year of Skills. And yesterday, Commissioner Gabriel already launched her new initiative on training of 1 million talents until 2025 in deep tech skills. one of the 5 flagship initiatives within the new European Innovation Agenda. To conclude, Europe's strength is based on its talent. During the European Year of Skills, we will support increased, more efficient and more inclusive funding for reskilling and upskilling, as well as training. We aim to ensure our talents develop their full potential. Thank you, and I wish you fruitful discussions.
Thank you, Ms. Petrova, and we also thank Commissioner Gabriel for your input today. Now I would like to show you as Ms. Petrova shared some data from their survey, I would like to show you another preliminary survey that the organizers of the session conducted among 20 young people at the age of 24. I think I'm sharing the screen. So this is one question that is very interesting, I believe, would be very interesting to our panelists. If you were on EU statements, in what would you invest more heavily? And as you can see from the answers of the young people, social policies are very important for young people. I hope that everyone can see the results from the survey. Then we have climate and green policies, sustainable mobility, competitiveness and smart development, and cohesion policy, bringing Europe closer to the young people. This is another question from the survey that is also very interesting. Imagine your city or municipality has just been awarded €1 million in European funding. What would you like this money to be spent for? And we see that young people, they want public funding to be allocated mainly to education, training, and sports. I hope that our panelists will have input on this answer as well. In renovation and infrastructure is another answer that is quite popular. It is very interesting here in Bulgaria. We have this one region in Bulgaria that is highly underdeveloped in northwest Bulgaria, and everyone thinks that infrastructure is the #1 problem for such regions, but it actually turns out that sometimes investing in human capital might be even more important. And the third answer for now, that the third question and answer from the survey that I would like to share with you now is, do you feel involved in local and regional policy making? How about European policy making? This is not only important, but I believe this is quite alarming, that many of the young people answered negatively to this question, and they don't really feel involved into local or European policy. And I think this is quite a good transition to our next speaker, which is Mr. Ricardo, who is mayor of Braga and also a member of the Committee of Regions. I believe that he will have something to say on this and might prove us wrong with the good practices from his city. Mr. Rio is a mayor of Braga since year 2013, and before that he was an alderman of the Braga City Council, a member of the Braga Municipal Assembly. He's a member of the Executive Committee of Eurocities and of the Global Parliament of Mayors. And also something interesting in his biography, that is he's OECD champion mayor for inclusive growth. So it is my pleasure to give the floor now to Mr. Rio.
Good afternoon, Ekaterina, and good afternoon to all the other members of the panel and to the ones that are following us digitally this time. It is a great pleasure to participate in this discussion that is connected with a topic to which Braga Municipality is very linked. We were European Capital of Youth in 2012. We were Ibero-American Capital of Youth in 2016. and the youth policies are, let's say, among the list of the top priorities of the municipality, at least since I was elected the mayor, as you mentioned, in 2013. And for that, what we try to do is to make Braga not only a city with a high standard of quality of life, but a city in which the youngsters can fulfill their dreams and can obviously proceed with their ambitions. And for instance, looking at the European Eurobarometer from 2020, we have been quite successful because according to that report, 97% of our citizens said that they were happy to live in Braga. And among those citizens, we have 40% that are below 30 years old. Braga is one of the oldest cities in Europe, but at the same time, one of the youngest in terms of population. And that has been probably the biggest pillar for our growth and for our continuous development in recent years. Braga was, according to the Portuguese census from the National Institute of Statistics, the city that grew more in population in the last decade. So we instead of on the other side, on the contrary, with what happened with the country and the northern region in which we are included, and the main cities of Portugal as well, from our size, they have diminished the size, and Braga grew by 6.5%. And that happened because we have managed to attract a lot of youngsters and to allow them to set in the city, to have access to innovation, to have access to jobs, and to obviously opportunities of career, to good quality of education, and to all the other dimensions of the quality of life that are crucial for the happiness of our citizens. And in that process, we always try to engage youth and the citizens as a whole, but the youngsters in particular, as part of our, let's say, management process. It's not only about sharing views or gathering contributes from the youngsters, but it's working together with them in order to identify specific solutions for improving the quality of life in the city. We have a very active youth council, which was, let's say, not created because this is a legal instrument in Portugal that every single municipality should have, but we try to boost its activity from 2013 on, gathering more and more associations, developing more initiatives, having more meetings, meeting more times with which of the members. And this has been very active in the latest years. We have over 50 associations that come from student associations to youth associations to heritage or environmental youth associations that are participating and that are actively contributing to the policies that we develop. And in each single main objective of the city, they are also giving their contribute. Just to give you two examples, Braga is very focused in the sustainability area. We have been reporting the sustainable development goals for a couple of years now, and we are always linking the management of the city with the sustainable development goals. And we always try to bring the youngsters to each of the initiatives that we develop with the society so that we can obviously have a bigger mobilization of the population. Another issue, the European Capital of Culture application that we have, we are among the short runners for the European Capital of Culture in 2027. And all the process was done engaging these institutions and allowing them to give their contributes and their suggestions to the bid book and to the initiatives that we will develop. And this linkage, it's very important because we don't look at this council as a way to legitimate our policies. It's actually a source of innovation of our policies, because the youngsters are the first ones to give us new ideas, new projects that we need to address, new problems that we need to address maybe, and that is very useful. And actually we invest a lot in terms of reinforcement of citizenship and participation of citizens as a whole. In 2014, we had our first participative budget in the city, but 2 years later, in 2016, we created the first participative budget that is specially addressed to youngsters. It's the project To the Siege, which is a project that was developed with the Youth Council, in which the associations can suggest the projects. They are voted by the students of all the schools in Braga in a poll, as if it was a common election, which is also linked with the idea that we should try to use them, to make them use to vote. And that's a challenge for the youngsters because of this distance between the participation in democracy acts and the youth population. And then the projects that are chosen are financed by the municipality and are executed and implemented by the ones that suggested them. So it's the different approach, for instance, from the participative budget, because there you make the suggestion, it is chosen by the voters, but then it's the municipality that develops the projects. Here, there is a co-responsibility because the ones that suggest are the ones that implement the projects. And taking into account, for instance, the results of your survey, I wasn't so surprised that most of the youngsters addressed social questions. Because, for instance, in the To the Cities project, the youth associations don't usually propose initiatives that are specially addressed to youngsters. They propose initiatives that are addressed to the overall community and to different aspects of the community, and that's obviously linked with that. I was a bit surprised, I have to say, taking into account your survey on the result of the auscultation process, that youngsters say that they are more demanded by European issues than by local one. I don't think that's the reality. Actually, there's a big distance between Europe and the overall citizens, and the youngsters are no different from that. And on the other way around, cities and local authorities are much more engaging youngsters in the shaping of their policies, and Braga is just, let's say, one of example. And it's an example that we have been trying to leverage. I think that Ivan mentioned that we have created a couple of months ago the European Youth Capitals Network, with other cities that have been European youth capitals in recent years. And our idea is precisely not to leave the European Youth Capital as a title that is exhausted in a single year when we received the title, but instead of that, to boost the cooperation between the cities, to share best practices, to shape maybe national and the European policies on this, together with the European youth European institutions, and also to, let's say, to engage other cities that have not been youth capitals, so that they can share the same principles and the same practices in their territories. And I think that these procedures were part of the secret of our success, and how we managed to attract more people to the city, to provide them the goods and the services that they need, and the capacity to obviously be happy in Braga, as I mentioned in the beginning.
Thank you very much for your short intervention and the good practices that you shared. I would personally recommend your practice with the school voting for the project that the municipality is funding to the mayor of my municipality, because I see it as a very good training of exercising youth democratic rights, and it's a good way to also to increase the interest of young people into democratic life and procedure as voting. So now I would invite all the panelists and our guests here to watch a short video from Lublin, which will be the European Youth Capital next year. This is the first Polish city to be granted with the title. So I would ask our colleagues, our technical support colleagues, to play the video.
Największym wyzwaniem stojącym przed młodymi ludźmi w moim mieście jest tak naprawdę zaprojektowanie siebie w tej przestrzeni, która już jest. Lublin jest miastem akademickim, które ciągle się rozwija, ale nadal w Polsce Wschodniej brakuje staży i praktyk płatnych, podczas których studenci i młodzi ludzie mogliby otrzymywać wynagrodzenie nie tylko za zdobywaną wiedzę i umiejętności, które potem wykorzystają na swoim rynku pracy, ale również za czas, który na to poświęcają.
Największym wyzwaniem młodych ludzi w Lublinie jest na pewno znalezienie dobrej pracy, poszukanie perspektyw dla siebie, a także znalezienie dobrego miejsca na uczelni.
Well, I think the biggest challenge for young people in Poland in general is the education system that is not following up with the changes that are happening, and mental health support. But this is like pretty much working good in Lublin. I think the most important thing right now in my city is the fact that young people have difficulty to find good job after they finish university, and a good place to live is in a meaning of a flat. So these are the things that we are facing as young people, and that would really need to have some change.
Myślę, że zarówno Unia Europejska, jak i Komisja Europejska mogłyby mocniej dofinansować programy stażowe po to, aby właśnie wyeliminować z rynku te formy bezpłatnych staży i praktyk, aby każdy młody człowiek, a w szczególności student mieszkający w Lublinie, mógł otrzymać wynagrodzenie za wykonaną pracę.
Unia Europejska może nas wesprzeć na kilka sposobów, między innymi ciągle realizując swój program Erasmus+, dzięki którym młodzi ludzie mogą odkrywać siebie, jeździć na różne wymiany międzynarodowe i dzięki temu poznawać nowe możliwości i poszerzać swoją strefę komfortu. A także dzięki funduszom europejskim uczelnie mogą być lepiej wyposażone, a także możemy lepiej rozwijać lubelską młodzież.
I think European Union can help us through many different programs that are supporting young people. For example, Erasmus Plus that can help young people to find internship or to have their first job, to start their first company. I think that can be very useful. And also with the programs helping young people get their first flat, helping them to invest, helping them to have a place to live without hundreds of years of loans for the apartment.
Uważam, że osoby podejmujące decyzje na najwyższych szczeblach powinny realnie przyjechać tutaj do Lublina i zobaczyć, jak wyglądają staże i praktyki bezpłatne, po to, aby się przekonać, że młodzi ludzie i studenci potrzebują tego wsparcia finansowego. Dlatego serdecznie ich zapraszamy tutaj do zobaczenia tego, jak wygląda realne życie.
Aby rozpocząć realizację działania, musimy działać w szczególności na dwóch obszarach. Rozmowy z młodymi ludźmi, informowanie młodych ludzi o tym, co się aktualnie dzieje w mieście. Musimy słuchać Młodzieżowej Rady Miasta czy Rady Studentów Lublina. A także najważniejszym na życie w tym wszystkim jest Europejska Stolica Młodzieży, która pokazuje szanse i możliwości dla młodych ludzi w naszym mieście i przede wszystkim pokazuje, ile my młodzi możemy i to my młodzi w końcu przejmujemy to miasto.
I would really wish for the people ruling our countries in the European Union to treat young people as partners for discussion and really mean it for them to discuss as equals, without just saying like young people are important and their needs are important. Young people really want to be heard and really want to talk about the things that matter to them. And I think this is the first step, to be able to hear, to be able to discuss, to talk, and then together plan the solutions that can address the needs that are there.
So social issues again, employment, internship, this is what these are the main priorities for young people, and they really want to see actions, not only messages and good words. So now I would present our next speaker, who is Mr. Thomas Lhermitte, municipal councillor and also youth representative from Amiens, which was the youth capital in year 2020. Mr. Lhermitte, please share. Maybe I'm mistaking your family name. Sorry, my French is not one of the languages, unfortunately, that I speak. Please share with us what real change for young people looks like in the European Youth Capital. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Your French is probably better than my Bulgarian, so don't worry about it. And so in order to be able to answer this question, I saw that we needed to make an analysis of maybe 3 different steps, because first we had the before 2020 expectations, because when we are preparing the year, we didn't expect COVID-19. Second, we had the during crisis improvisation, because it was improvisation as you all experience in your cities and countries. and then the outcome for the youth policy of the city. So the first thing to know maybe is that the city of Amiens is very special because it's the only big town in an area of approximately 100 kilometers. Outside of Amiens, there is a lot of difficulty for mobility, social difficulties, financial difficulties, or psychological difficulties, no matter how old you are. So Amiens is the only place to study, but also the only place to work, because 80% of the jobs in our area are located in the metropolitan area of Amiens. So because of this mobility issue, people who study in Amiens mostly come to live in Amiens. And for some of them, they have to pay rent, buy food, and probably get a job to afford all of this. So as a consequence, there is almost 35,000 students in Amiens when the global population is 136,000 people. So we estimate that 1 citizen over 3 is less than 30 years old and could be either a student, for example, living quietly in his apartment house, or a lonely unemployed mother living thanks to social actions. So this is the basis of the 4 axes that we had in our European Youth Capital Program, trying to act for the good of every kind of young people that we have in the city. So the first axe was be in the best condition to find a job. The second one was be an actor of the city's future. The third one was break the minorities exclusion. And the fourth one was be proud of the European citizenship. So we start a lot of actions as soon as we get the title confirmed in 2017. For the jobs, for example, we organize coffee breaks to learn English, passe ton permis in French, to get the driver license, or school support class to help them to get their graduation. For being an actor of the city's future, we made afterworks to discuss with them about the city's project or national news stories. We renew the Youth City Council to build projects with young people. For breaking the minority exclusion, we made housing studies and facilities, as long as swimming class for disabled people, and also intervention in high school to speak about LGBT rights. And finally, for the European citizenship, for example, we participate to a lot of European events. We bring young people to visit the European Parliament. We involve them in the EYC program and organization. So we were very proud of how it starts and of our program when 2020 arrived. It was the beginning of that year, full of action like this, but also full of massive events like concert and Games Week, for example, but COVID-19 has arrived. So the situation in France during 2020 was almost like every country. It was maybe we can say a disorganized continuity of lockdown and freedom period. Like everyone, we had a strong lockdown at the first times, and then we had lockdown that we could break under some circumstance. And then we had a lot of limitation for inside and outside events. So we could only make meetings with 4, 5, or 6 people maximum. And it lasted almost until the end of 2021. So even with the title covering 2021, it was impossible for us to keep the program like we should. So the big change for young people in Amiens, and remember it's 1/3 of the population of the city, the big change in 2020 under the hardest lockdown condition was the gap. It was that the gap between social condition was reduced. Almost every young people was in struggle. The student had to stay at home in front of screen to have class. The workers often lose their jobs. The one living far from family were very lonely, and quite often there was a superposition of those bad conditions. And in France, the government is a machine very hard to move on the national guideline and financial decisions. So the cities had to improve. And in that context, being European Youth Capital gives us a lot of responsibilities. So what we did is that we use all the partnership that we create during 4 or 5 years. We used the financial means that we had in order to help young people as close as possible from their need. And for example, we give, during the first lockdown, we give financial help of 30 euros by week for every young people, almost without condition, using the know-how of our Community Social Action Association to allow them to buy food and first necessary stuff. Instead of paying the concert, for example, and other events that we need to cancel, we collect product of first necessity to give to a social grocery dedicated to students of the university for more than 10,000 euros over 2 years. We change our after-work events or coffee breaks or school support class to adapt them to a video conference session. And we create a new one dedicated to coaching session for self-improvement. Then we had psychological consultation. First, it was on video conference and then physical consultation to help the student in struggle with the lockdown and with the social isolation. We create law consultation to help the students in struggle with payments, rent issues, or job loss. We did it with law and medical partner, with the university, and a lot of various partners that really wanted to bring help to the community. And the best example to illustrate this will from a lot of people is an event called Saturday Solidaire. So Solidaire in English is united. Every Saturday in the middle of a popular neighborhood, we use a city leisure center to gather a lot of charity. The idea was to allow young people to go out of their flat and come all the morning and see people, find help on different stuff, have fun, and finally share a meal prepared by a charity of the neighborhood. So this was a weekly answer to the biggest problem faced by young people of the city. And our intention was to do it in every sector of the city to touch a maximum of young people. So the first week, we decided to do it about sports. So the place was full of sports clubs like volleyball, basketball, or boxing, and everyone could practice. Then we choose to do it about jobs. So we gave a company looking for candidates, charity of occupational integration, and every young people could face potential job offer, show their CV, and have some tips about their presentation. Then we choose to make a Saturday of clean challenge, again, thanks to a partnership with a charity who has all the means to do it. Then we choose again to do it about culture. So the young people were able to show the dancing, painting, or music skills that they had. And we did it every Saturday until the summer 2020, when the restrictions were erased and life a little bit as usual. And as you can see, every one of the Saturday Solidaire take something from the 4 axes that we had in our program, like the job help, actor of the city, helping minority, and European citizenship. So we had up to 100 people each Saturday. So for me, it's the proof that those 4 priorities were exactly the good ones, but we didn't apply them the way we had planned to do it. The success was very noisy of the Saturday Solidaire, and after the summer 2020, the charities themselves start to organize that kind of event everywhere in the city. So on our side, we continue our different actions until the official end of the EYC title. And now in 2022, I can say that our current youth policy would never have been so efficient and so close to young people if we didn't have that title in 2020. Now youth policy is not only about taking young people and bring them to different leisure activity. We keep the 4 axes. We keep the action that worked. We change the one that worked a bit less to have a policy that perfectly meet the need of young people. And we do it keeping the 2020 lesson in mind by having a real participation of the youth in public decision, by gathering partners for all kinds of projects, and always try to place charity around the table or on the path of young people for any achievement. So I will never thank the people of Amiens for Youth enough for all the hard work that they've done over the years, despite all the difficulties and the need of a short reaction time. The COVID crisis was probably one of the hardest times that Europe had to face in this century. For every country, big and small, every people young and old, every social class, rich and poor, we've seen that if we are united, like we were in the EU to buy masks, for example, if we are united like we were in Amiens for the Saturday Solidaire, if we are united, we will always be able to overcome the hard times. And I hope that every young people will remember this, because big change always involves big outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Managing the organization of being the European Youth Capital, I'm sure it was and it will be very challenging for every city, but I think we can all agree that being the youth capital in year 2020 was an extreme challenge, and I'm sure that your experience would be very interesting for every city, how to I think that's a probably a lesson on crisis management and how to still pursue your goal in such critical times. Now, I would like to share with you some more results from our survey, actually final results. I think they would be the answers of the young people would be very interesting, especially to our representatives from local authorities, as Mr. Rio and Mr. Lhermitte. The question was, how would you like to communicate with your local or regional representatives or EU bodies? I see that Ms. Petrova is still with us, so probably she would share this information with Commissioner Gabriel as well. The answer is, I would say, very impressive, because most of the young people, like 70%, answered that they would rather communicate with their local representatives in person. Still, and actually we can take into account that this answer comes 2 years following the COVID crisis. So it's very impressive that young people still value personal communication more. I wanted to share also briefly, you can see on your screens, I would not read it, the actually 2 quotes on cohesion that young people from the survey share, that how important is cohesion policy, especially for young people that grow up in cross-border regions. Actually, I'm such a person that I grew in a cross-border region, because my hometown is on the border here in Bulgaria with Serbia and Romania. So I completely share this opinion. And also another quote from participants in our survey about cohesion and how it can improve the quality of life of young people, and how we should preserve our traditions and cultures and still innovate and look into the future. Following this, I would now like to give the floor to our final speaker, who is here in person. And this is Associate Professor Hristo Andonov from the Bulgarian National Sports Academy in Bulgaria. Associate Professor Andonov is actually the Deputy Dean of the Faculty of Sports at the National Academy, and he will share with us more about the role of university in conserving and cultivating youth energy and democratic spirit. So, Mr. Andonov, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ekaterina. Hello, everyone. For me, it's a big pleasure to be part in this meeting. I would like to present to you our general views on the place of university and sport in modern society. I'm going to speak more generally, not very particular, because all of you know that the universities are the place where you can do a lot of activities, and also there's a lot of opportunities. So please, the second slide. We have decided to divide our presentation into 4 parts. We got 4 main views. Universities today are the hotbeds of many new and different ideas and cultures, a place where freedom of speech and mind are elevated to the highest level. It is the place where the social active young people can build leadership skills and abilities which will help them to be an integral part of modern society based on the democratic principle and values. Sports, athletic endeavors, both amateur and professional, have a tremendous economical, political, and cultural influence on our society. Sporting events bring these people together, restraining ties and celebrating the common ideas of fairness, sacrifice, and hope. Democracy is our third. The most obvious way to participate in government are to vote. It's very important. Or to stand for office and become a representative of the people. But also democracy, however, is far more than just voting. There are numerous other ways of engaging with politics and government. Progress and future. Being young is ultimately facing challenges in creating or recreating a space For future fluid development, it means turning problems into opportunities and solutions and being the driving force. The very first true university in the West was found in Bologna late in the 11th century. It became a worldwide respected school of canon and civil law. The modern Western university evolved from the medieval schools known as Studia Generalia. They were generally recognized places of study open to students from all parts of Europe. The earliest studia arose out of effort to educate Turks and monks beyond the level of the cathedral and monastic schools. The inclusion of the scholars from foreign countries constituted the primary difference between the studia and the schools from which they grew. An engaged university, therefore, is an institution that fulfills its broader social role as an independent institution drawing on its research, teaching, and institutional resources. It is a neutral in the sense of being non-parties, but is far from neutral in the sense of being devoid of values or convictions. It is committed to the public good, to democracy and human rights, and to basic policies and decisions on facts established through study, research and critical reflection, as well as to challenge perceived wisdom based on the discoveries. Next slide, please. Sport. In society are so vital that the United Nations has declared them as a human right. Sport and play are human rights that must be respected and enforced worldwide. Sport has been increasingly recognized and used as a low-cost and high-impact tool in humanitarian development and plays during efforts, peace. Here, one of the main aims of the National Sports Academy, Vasil, Levski, is to support local and foreigner athletes in combining high performance sport and education. Supporting the dual career means that strives to optimize the training condition for athletes and students, but also that their future gets secured by making it possible for them to get an education or vocational training so that they have a safe platform to start from where their sports career is over. It's very important for the students who are professional athletes, because at one moment when they stop with sporting, they should find their place in the society. One of the good practices in the activity of National Sports Academy is the Erasmus Plus program. Last year, more than 60 of our students participated in it. This gave them an opportunity to enrich their culture, knowledge, and skills, to learn from the good experience of other European countries. But here we have to mention that this number, if we have to compare with, let's say 5 years ago, it's less. Of course, there is a pandemic of COVID-19, but also we are seeing that the interest of the young people is not that strong as, let's say, 5 years ago about these exchange programs. Thus, the idea that nothing in sport belongs to that leads by privilege turns it into an illustration of what an open society is like. In such a society, citizens are equals among equals, and along with Q13, the citizen who shows that they are more excellent than others in a public, objective, and open way should rule the government. They deserve to be the leaders of public affairs. This is a lesson that sport teaches us. So we can conclude that sport is politically and societally relevant in our societies. It contains many implement features that turn into a valuable practice in the task of bettering our work. Next slide. However, treating democracy as a tool solely related to the participation in election is insufficient. Here in Bulgaria, we have this problem. First, we don't want to vote, but after that, we don't want to be a part of this. Democracy requires free and fair election, but also the participation of citizens in the life of societies and communities between and after the elections. At a time when people seem to focus largely on their own interest in private space, a major part of the democratic mission of higher education is to stimulate commitment of its students, alumni, faculty, and staff to the public space and the public good. Voting and participation require deliberation. The ability to develop one's own views and arguments, and the willingness and ability to seriously consider those of others are integral to the competence required to the culture of democracy. Next slide, please. An ability to reflect and have a bit of distance is perhaps necessary for a university to fulfill its role as a venue to understand and help solve the larger problems that face humanity. Local, national, and global issues such as climate change, sustainable development, migration, poverty, and increasing inequality, society divides, rising extremism, and democratic deficit requires that the higher education institute, faculties, and students have the freedom and the will to consider issues both in the short term and in a broader and long-term perspective, as well as in relation to their values. This role of higher education cannot be fulfilled except in a context of democracy, both in society at large and within academia. Moreover, it cannot be fulfilled unless the university sees itself as an actor of democracy. This is very important. We have to decide, we have to know that we are part of this, and we have to be involved, really involved. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Associate Professor Andonov. I believe we just experienced something like a troll or hacking attack a few minutes ago, but I have the assurance of our partners who are responsible for the technical support that we will not experience that again, hopefully. Now I would, before I introduce the next video messages, that short video messages that we're going to see, I would like to remind our attendees here and the youth representatives that we are expecting your questions to our panelists so that we're going to have a dynamic, I hope, discussion with our interesting panelists. And now I would like to invite you to watch a video from the city of Ghent, which was last year European Youth Capital. Please, can we play the video?
De energiecrisis zal veel mensen treffen en dan heb ik vooral grote angst voor kinderen en jongeren die nu al op de grens of in armoede leven. Ik denk door bemiddeling met bevoegde instanties die energie leveren of meer inzetten op alternatieven of financieel gewoon mensen die het moeilijk hebben, soms misschien onzichtbaar worden, waardoor dat we als jeugdwerkers of als jeugdveld gewoon de opvallende afwezigen gaan moeten signaleren.
Van oké, er zijn wel heel veel noden in de publieke ruimte voor jongeren, maar daar wordt gelijk heel weinig mee gedaan. Alleen beleid rond creëren rond propere waterlopen, maar ook naar het saneren van bestaande dingen, juist om die toegankelijk te maken voor. En dat is niet alleen voor jongeren, hè. Dat is voor kinderen, dat is voor jongeren, maar dat is ook voor jongvolwassenen, jonge gezinnen. Dat is voor heel veel mensen zo. Hè. Gewoon daar al transparant in zijn naar elkaar toe en zorgen dat iedereen betrokken is om daarover samen te kunnen zitten en daarover te praten. Want dat creëert ook een gedeelde verantwoordelijkheid.
We wel merkt in onze directe omgeving van kijk, er is heel veel mis met mentaal welzijn van jongeren, dat wordt niet opgemerkt. Die jongeren kunnen zich vaak niet vinden in situaties of zo. Voelen zich eenzaam in hun eigen gedachten. We waren er net over bezig dat het eigenlijk jammer is dat dat enkel maar op bepaalde plaatsen bestaat. Je hebt dat hier, je hebt dat volgens mij ook in Brussel. Maar ik ken bijvoorbeeld filmmakers ook die hier een eerste project hebben gedaan, die nu films gaan maken met bijvoorbeeld Europese subsidie. Hier is super wijs, maar als je een groter project wil hebben, dan heb je ook vaak meer dan 10.000 euro nodig, meer bereik. En op Europees niveau is dat heel belangrijk, ook voor de jongeren, om zich te laten ontwikkelen, om zich beter te voelen. En op algemeen vlak lijkt me dat een heel goed idee.
Ik zei het daar juist ook tegen Jeroen, dat het heel belangrijk is om jongeren wel gewoon te betrekken bij projecten. En dat zijn interessante mensen meestal. Maar dat het ook wel leuk is om die gewoon een beetje te laten doen en een beetje vrij te geven in je project. En als je die een opdracht geeft en die zijn gemotiveerd om dat te doen, dat je die dan ook gewoon laat doen. Ja. Dan komt dat wel goed, denk ik.
Ik zit ook in de jongerenredactie van Te Gek. Te Gek is ook een organisatie die rond mentaal welzijn werkt, die dat taboe wil bespreekbaar maken. En ook zij hebben nu beslist om meer met jongeren te willen werken. Ja. Maar het zijn de jonge mensen die daar werken, maar niet per se jongeren. Dus ze willen ook vanuit de jongeren weten wat werkt, wat niet, wie zijn rolmodellen, wat kunnen we eraan doen, wat helpt voor jullie. En op die manier zit ik ook in een soort vergadering telkens met wat zij eigenlijk willen doen, hoe dat zij het willen aanpakken, wat dat ze gaan werken. En ook daar heb je van die opdrachtjes, misschien wil jij dit, misschien wil je dit doen. Ik denk dat je op die manier jongeren kunt verenigen en vooral de info en de input vanuit de jongeren zelf gebruiken.
All right, so probably the final part of the video was cut. I'm not really sure, but we could see the input of young people on one very huge issue right now, energy, and also the topic of mental health that was mentioned also by Mr. Lhermitte. That was a huge and pressing issue that but it was kind of worsening the situation regarding mental health during the COVID crisis. I would like also to mention that I have made a mistake about Ghent. It was not, it will be European Youth Capital in year 2024. So apologize for this mistake. And now we will see a short video message by the mayor of the city of Cluj-Napoca. That was European Youth Capital in year 2015. Please, can we play the video message now?
Dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, youth empowerment is about young people today contribute to society from early ages in significant ways. We have been able to see, since 2015, the year when Cluj-Napoca was European Capital of Youth, the difference young people can do in a city if allowed to. Youth events bring to Cluj more than 40 million euros a year. Entertainment and tourist-related activities, festivals and startup events are dreamed, organized, designed and implemented by the youth. Young people bring to our cities more add value with their vitality and their new understanding of the quality of life concept. They expect society to change for the better and they support us into embracing their vision for more sustainable and resilient city in our 100 Mission City project. We continue scaling up the good practices in the European network of youth capitals that will allow us to work together in creating all over Europe a lifestyle that leaves no one behind. Care, empathy, innovation, acceptance, belonging, and peace are values that all our young Europeans should share. Thank you so much.
We thank you for this video message. Now I would like to remind again everyone from our participants, young representatives, to share their questions or comments to the panelists as we move to the Q&A session. As we wait for some questions to come, I would like to start the discussion with our panelists with one very, I would say, extremely serious question, and that would be the situation now in Europe. And as all of us have never thought that Europe will return to war, but this February everything changed. And the European Union must have a vision to continue raising generations that respect our shared values as a union, such as freedom, peace and democracy. Unfortunately, we see some anti-European and far-right parties rising up. So we must have a very clear strategy how to counter to these movements. And I would like to ask our panelists what good practices could be implemented on a local level and what they think should be implemented by the EU on a strategic level to counter this anti-European, or I would say also anti-peaceful and anti-solidarity movements. I would probably ask Mr. Ryu to start with this question and to share his view on this.
Well, Ekaterina, the first dimension is a more structural one, is the value of Europe and how the perception of citizens can obviously take into account the usefulness and the benefits that we take from our joint participation in this big project. Because as we always say, when something goes well, the merit and credits go to the national authorities or to the regional authorities, and when something goes bad, it's Europeans' fault, Europe's fault. And I think that Europe still has a long way to go to show to the citizens that this is a valuable project and this is the best model that we can take into account to our future development. The second dimension, and that's mostly addressed to youngsters, it's the exchange, the intercultural dialogue. I'm always very happy, for instance, when I see schools from my city that are engaged in Erasmus projects, taking people from other sites in Europe to Portugal and bringing people from my city to other cities all over Europe, because to get to know the other cultures, to get to know the other societies is fundamental to promote the dialogue and to get to know better each other, and more probably to allow us to be more respectful from the differences that we have. And in times like the ones we live today, to live with the diversity and to exchange these opportunities of events with other citizens from other countries, it's very important. I think that's a work that we still have to strengthen with the youngsters all over Europe. And obviously, the third dimension is the one that has more political effects in the short run. We need to show results, and for instance, the success that Braga has been having in providing employment to the people, in providing the needs of the citizens, even in times of difficulty like the ones that we had, for instance, in pandemic. You were talking about mental health. Well, even in the pandemic period, we try to provide sports activities, cultural activities, even if digitally, to our youngsters, so that they will still keep being engaged, and not only provide them the access to education, which was also crucial to assure balanced access to education in the times of crisis. And so I think that it's a matter of results as well. If we are able to deliver, we will obviously be contributing to fight against the populism, against these new trends that we see all over the place.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Lhermitte, what is your view on this? What practices do we need to counter these far-right movements and anti-EU?
Well, I don't know really for all the country, but in France, I guess it's quite the same thing in every European country. But in France, far-right parties are just playing on the fact that people don't know exactly what is Europe, and they play also on the, let's say, misery on people, and that's what the mayor of Braga, Mr. Rio, was saying. I think that we are currently building something with Europe, but this construction is not over yet. So now the situation in which we are is sure a situation where there is some bad points, let's say negative points of understanding and of rules that can clash with the national rules and so on. But the solution would not be for me to make less Europe, but to make more Europe. So maybe that one solution would be to bring the people to build their future, their Europe, and try to maybe convince them that Europe is the solution to the problem and not less Europe solution to the problem.
Thank you. Associate Professor Andonov, what is your view on this? I think you're muted.
Thank you. As Mr. Yu said, in my opinion, for the university also it's very important, this Erasmus Plus program, of course, I mentioned in my presentation, because for the education and sport, we must not draw red lines. We have to bring people together to compare our ideas, to show our vision of stuff. And I believe that when we are speaking together, when we are discussing our problems, the problems of the world, this is one of the ways that in the university and sports can help for all this situation.
Thank you. So Erasmus Plus is indeed a very powerful tool for cultural exchange that help every young person to get to know different cultures. And this is one of the main instruments and tools that we have in power to counter anti-peaceful and anti-European movements. So I would also like to ask you another question regarding the demographic picture and another very big problem that we have here in Europe, the depopulation of certain regions and demographic collapse. This is a problem that actually the instruments of cohesion policy can be very useful, and also this shows huge inequalities between different regions, because some of them are very depopulated and the local economies and the local authorities and people are struggling with such problems. So very much like to hear your view on this. Maybe now we start vice versa with Associate Professor Andonov. What instruments and tools you think we can use to counter this? In Bulgaria, we have very big problem with certain regions that are depopulated.
This demographic problem in Bulgaria, it's not from today, it's not from this year, it's since, let's say, many years. Unfortunately, I don't have solution about this, and my opinion about this, again, because this is my area, university, study, sports. Maybe this is the way how we may also try to bring back our people, because a lot of them, they're outside of our country. Of course, most important thing for the society is maybe the social policy. The three main columns, let's say, are the education, health insurance, and social policy in one country. And we have to work about this. And we may learn a lot from our European partners. For example, let's say my brother-in-law is French, he's from France, Toulon. And I know that France is a very social country. Also over there, it's, let's say, we have a double vision about that. But we have to look about this. We have to care about this. We have to involve the young people to be more involved about all these social problems, let's say. And of course, again, back to Erasmus Plus programs, this is for the universities the best opportunity. This is the best way.
Thank you. Mr. Lhermitte, you already mentioned that the metropolitan area of Amiens is gathering most of the people because there is university there are places to work. I think also in France, in northern France, there are certain regions that are struggling with such demographic problems. Could you share more on your views about how we can counter this?
Yeah, in France, there is also this problem not only on the north of France, because north of France is at the heart of Europe between London, Brussels, and Germany. But there is a lot of region in the very middle of France, south of Paris, where you cannot find the doctor if you are not living there. You don't have any internet connection and so on. And that was one of my point to maybe answer this demographic problem, because we cannot let's say force people to have children in a certain area and so on. But the first thing would be to bring the public service outside of the city, to be able to help the people living on the countryside to benefit from the same service than the one living on the city, because sometimes it's not a choice. And the people living on the countryside, if they don't have a doctor, if they don't have a nurse to watch the children while they are working, well, they maybe don't go working for both parents. So you have to help them to change their life and maybe allow them to bring the life that they want on the countryside. And the second point for this would be maybe to invest the EU fund of territory construction or reconstruction, because so far in the city of Amiens we see that there is a lot of European fund used in order to build public transport and make some places look good, make new buildings and so on. But you could also take benefit from this fund in order to help the little village in the countryside in order to develop themselves and also benefit from the same facilities at the city. And the example of having an hospital and having an internet connection is the two examples that we mostly have in France. So we need to be able to use financial help for this.
Thank you. Mr. Rio, you already shared with us couple of good practices, and you mentioned that Braga is a very old city, but it also has a population of young people. What would you share from your experience with us?
Well, I think that the times they are changing, as we used to say. And a couple of years ago, when we started with this strategy, our top priority was to provide economic development opportunities and access to employment, because that's the first element to retain talent or to attract talent to a city. And youngsters are the biggest source of talent, is obviously to assure them that they can get access to a job. But in recent times, we saw this change, that so many more people are working remotely, and they are just working from any place in the world, for any company in the world. And so, for instance, like Thomas was mentioning, the access to internet infrastructure and the digital conditions are now a crucial element to assure that opportunity as well. In any case, I think that what it is important is that we don't look as there is a common model, a common solution that can be applied to every single territory. We have to look at the specificities of each territories. We have to look at the resources that we can put in value in each of the territories, and then try to assure the conditions for people and for youngsters in particular to have quality of life. Because if they don't have leisure activities, if they don't have good education, if they don't have cultural activities or sports, probably they won't like to live in that place. And that's why I think that those dimensions are obviously very important right now to assure the fight against this demographic desert that some cities are facing.
Thank you. I think I've noticed in all the three answers that you've mentioned as a very helpful instruments, education and training, also access to medical assistance in different regions, and connectivity in terms of physical infrastructure, roads and transportation, and also internet connectivity. Also, work and life balance is very important, and social activities for young people to attract them to stay in certain regions. And of course, I would like to highlight and repeat what Mr. Rio said, that there is no one medicine for this problem. There are some specific solutions and different specific and tailor-made approach should be undertaken, as each region is unique and has its unique problems and opportunities as well. I'm very happy that Mr. Rio mentioned the word talent, and I would like, probably that would be my final question to you, to ask you, as we all can see that that Europe is lagging behind the US and China in terms of development of cutting edge technologies and the creation and development of tech giants and big tech companies. As Ms. Petrova mentioned in the beginning of our meeting, how important skills of young people are, and that would be the thematical next European year of skills. What do you think are the key skills that young people need to be trained for and educated to be adequate to the labor market today, to the labor market of 21st centuries? Because as we know, each of you as a university professor or as a representative of the local authorities, to have a living economy, business is interested into having people and trained people, or not specifically trained, but people with skills that are adequate to the times that we are living in, to the digital and high technology times. So I would start with Mr. Rio, if we can have your view on this.
Well, first of all, there are what we used to call the soft skills that are more and more important, because on top of every single knowledge that you may have, if you aren't able to socialize, if you aren't able to be flexible, to have a capacity to react to the uncertain whatever, you will probably won't adapt to the circumstances that we live now. The other dimension is obviously in the STEM areas. Obviously, Europe and each of our countries or regions and cities won't be competitive if they don't have a sufficient mass of human resources that are linked with these areas. Currently in Portugal, the resources that are connected with IT and engineering are disputed like soccer players in the winter and the summer market, because they are so bare, and every single company is looking for that. And for instance, in the city of Braga, as we have this dimension in terms of youngsters population, we had a strong basis to recruit new talent. But on top of that, for instance, we promoted a specific talent project together with the companies from Braga, or that are based in Braga right now, that is attracting people from other sites in the country and from other sites in the world. And for instance, when I mentioned the growth in population that we had in the last decade, almost half of that population came from other countries in the world. So it's something that we also need to position ourselves to bring that talent in these crucial areas to our city. And on top of that, also linked with the companies that you mentioned, or at least to the big companies, we have developed a specific activity within Startup Braga, which is a facility that we have here in the city, and a project to create an entrepreneurial ecosystem here in the city that tries to boost the entrepreneurial spirit of our youngsters, that tries to bring people from the knowledge centers, from the universities, to create their own businesses, and from there maybe one day be a unicorn and a big company in the world. And we already had some very successful projects.
Yeah, we all want to see that unicorn, but I would say the process to getting there might be more important than that, because that would mean we would have young people and next generation with the skills needed for this century. Thank you again for sharing a very good practice that could be useful for many other local municipalities. Your partnership with the business sector, Ms. Lhermitte, can you share your view on these topics, on the skills?
Well, for me, there is what makes that the US and Japan are ahead of us in terms of skills and technologies. Probably that they have a very great diversity of people that are digging into a lot of different topics. So I guess that there is probably not a specific topic that we need to develop in Europe and so on, but we need to make sure that the students, as young as possible, are eyes open on every possibility that they have in front of them, and that they are open-minded, so that maybe the school will not be an obligation but an opportunity. And in that way, we will maybe create diversity, and someone will have a new idea that no one has. In Amiens, it's more often around the medical technology, because we have a big medical center in the region. But this is one of the success that we have, and the new startup that are born in the city are because the people are just willing to go, let's say, further and further in their subject that they like. So once it will be made, we also have to, let's say, open the university and the formation after high school, because you have sometimes university which is free but with a lot of people, and it's a great battle to be able to get graduate. And then if you are going to a private school with less people, it's always becoming expensive. So we really have to think about a new way for formation in order to allow the people to get skills. And then we also have to think about the people that are graduates since a long time. For example, I'm an engineer. If tomorrow I want to open my startup in let's say growing medicinal plants and so on, I need to be able to do it and get the formation that I want, and not being look at the guy who has a wrong career first because he was an engineer and then change his mind. We just need to change the way we think about a career, which is not supposed to be continuous in the same way.
Thank you. Mr. Andonov, as a university professor, what would be your short inputs on the topic of skills development? I don't know if he's still with us or there is a problem with the connection. Okay, so I'm sure that our youth representatives would have many comments, maybe on another meeting, and I hope that this session was very useful to them. I would ask, I can't see if Mr. Andonov is here with us, but still I would ask Mr. Rio and Mr. Lhermitte for a final one sentence as a message to the young people here in the session today. Mr. Rio?
Well, as I think it was clear throughout this session, we can't build the future of a city if we don't engage the youngsters. But this is a two-side work. It's not just waiting for the municipality or the local authorities to go and grab the youngsters and look for their contributes. It's also for the youngsters to have an active participation and to have the willingness to participate in that process together with the local authorities. And so it is my final challenge and remark that we count in Braga a lot with our youngsters, but I think that this is also something that they should pursue on their own together with us.
Thank you, Mr. Lhermitte.
Well, I will just complete. Once we have made that work in the city level with the young people, we just have to make more Europe together, because what we are doing with the European Youth Capital is going directly in that way. And I think that together is the only way to do it.
Thank you. Mr. Andonov, your final one sentence, your message to the young people here.
For a moment, my advice and my wishes for your people: be active, follow your dreams, stand behind your ideas. This is the way how the things is going, and be more active. Be more active, be more involved in the whole society.
Thank you. A good message from the three of our panelists. Mr. Neirotti, do you have final remarks to the participants?
No, just very quickly. I think that with this session we saw that the solution is not one. There are so many challenges, so many problems that the cities are facing. But I think that it's important to understand that the way in which cities can face the challenges, as Mayor Rio was saying, as cities want to really prepare for the future, they need to involve young people, not on just youth policies, but really on mainstream policies. So I think this is a clear message for the intervention that we heard today. And I think that involving young people will really be part of the solution for cities challenges in the future. So this is my main takeaway. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all panelists and participants to this session. I hope it was useful, and I'm sure we will continue the dialogue and our efforts into implementing youth policies. Thank you again and enjoy your afternoon. Doviđenja.
Bye.